I do think there is a right and wrong way to lose body fat, the correct way being one that isn't so extreme and aggressive that it's unsustainable, and sure, you lose lots of fat in the short term, but can you really stick to it? Do you ultimately get to your goal? Well, not if it's too extreme to actually sustain, right? The correct way being one that doesn't hugely harm your relationship with food, which sounds interesting, doesn't it? You might be thinking, hold on, Ryan, if I'm losing body fat, if I'm getting healthier, how could this be bad for my relationship with food? On the contrary, I actually encounter a lot of folks whose relationship with food actually gets worse the more that they try and push that fat loss button, interestingly enough, so that is possible. And surely as well, I think the correct way to lose body fat is one to whereby you're still getting all the nutrients that you need. Because if you're eating, less food, less of the good stuff as well as less of the bad to ensure that you're in that calorie deficit, are you necessarily going to get all the fiber, vitamins, minerals, etc. that you need? And so I'm reminded again that there is a more right and wrong way. For me, perhaps it looks slightly differently for you, but it's my YouTube channel, so make your own, mate. And I'm reminded of this very recently, that there clearly is a right and wrong way for me to personally lose body fat, because I've been trying to shift a couple of pounds lately anyway. I mentioned on my Instagram a couple of weeks ago that I'm trying to get to about 10% body fat right now and maintain it this summer, while seeing if I can actually do it in a very, very sustainable fashion. Bit of a self-experiment, and I'm going to feed back to you guys my insights on this, so stay tuned. I usually sit pretty, for reference, at about 13, maximum 14%, I would say, year round. And for me, that feels amazing. That feels very healthy, extremely sustainable, and still fit enough looking for my physique aspirations, let's say. But yeah, I just fire in my belly at the moment. I'm like, yeah, let's get to 10%. Let's see how that looks and feels to actually do it sustainably and carefully this time. And so, yeah, I'm reminded of the principles and the rules that I personally feel I need to abide by to make sure that, yes, I'm losing body fat, but I'm not compromising on the values that I have and the things that will actually allow me longevity at maintaining that lower body fat, rather than just chasing the golden goose of speedy fat loss. Meal of the day today then, if you're new, this is what we do. We've got bulgur wheat, we've got some tofu here, we've got some shredded carrots, some cherry toms, I don't know if you'll make these out, some sliced bell pepper here, some sauerkraut in the middle, probably kind of blends into the bulgur wheat a little bit coloration wise. And below that we've got a bunch of rocket, and then I've got some hemp seeds just sprinkled over here for our healthy fats. And this is all rather dry, of course, so we're throwing on a little bit of hot sauce. And this has been a helpful meal to me in this little fat loss phase I'm in, because it keeps me so satisfied. So yeah, love this. Love these bowls, as you know. The first rule I follow then, enough jibber jabber, to make sure that I'm losing body fat correctly, is by taking it very slowly. And this is a mind game more than anything else, because, like, this is my bag. I'm a coach, right? Okay, my MO is not helping people get to sort of 10% body fat and really athletic looking levels of leanness. That's not really my philosophy, but I still know enough about this stuff to do that very, very effectively. So it's about parking that urgency and that impatience, because I know I could get to 10% in 2 or 3 weeks with a very aggressive approach. I know I could actually battle my way through that. I've got enough discipline and dedication to do that. But I'm trying to think, what's going to make this stick? How is this going to stay? I want this to be sustainable this time. And so if I'm losing anywhere more than 3 pounds, to be honest, guys, if I'm losing anywhere more than 1.5 or 2 pounds at my current level of leanness and body weight anyway, for me, that's actually a bit of a quote unquote red flag in terms of the speed of progress. I know this feels odd to say, I actually want to slow the fat loss down. Why? Because I know where it goes. I know where it goes to push past hunger signals, unnecessarily so. I know what flirting with very, very low calorie diets feels like and how it results for me personally from years of failing with the up and down yo-yo of weight loss and dieting, quote unquote, and weight gain cycles in the past. And so I know those boundaries now. And it's a feeling internally, and there are little physical symptoms that I spot, such as irritability and fatigue, and just there's a certain threshold of hunger that actually for me goes from being tolerable to intolerable pretty quickly. And I know the more time I spend in that red zone, if I'm starting to hit that red zone multiple times per day, consecutive days in a row, I know I am 2 to 3 days maximum out from a 4,000 to 5,000 calorie binge. Right? I know this through experience. And so it's about feeling that out and saying, okay, I'm going too quickly here. Yes, wow, I'm chiseling up. I love this. This looks incredible. Wow, I could be there. I could be at 10% in just a couple of weeks' time. But then actually, putting the brakes on and saying, but at what cost? And am I flirting with any unnecessary hunger? Now, if I just happen to be in a period where I'm very, very locked in and I'm not experiencing much hunger and I notice I'm chiseling down really quickly and I'm losing 2.5 pounds a week, I might not fight it too much, but I will be incredibly cautious and I will know the shoe's gonna drop. I will know that at some point, bang, we're gonna hit that wall, we're gonna hit that hunger wall, and I'm gonna have to be willing to slow it down to keep things going. So that's my first rule of thumb here to losing body fat correctly. Actually being willing to do it slowly, which is the thing nobody talks about because we're all desperate for fast results. But actually, this is something that for me, tenfolds my consistency. I can actually stay on track and it's not just some aggressive fat loss phase to where my relationship with food really suffers and I just end up in this really bingy pattern all the time. Rule number 2 I follow to lose body fat correctly by not demonizing a whole macronutrient. Carbohydrates, protein, and fat being our 3 macronutrients here. I understand that weight loss, fat loss, more specifically, is going to come down to me being in a consistent deficit of calories. It's not about the balance, the ratios between my macronutrients. Now, that's not to say that macronutrients don't matter for overall health, well-being, and performance. It's also not to say that macronutrients don't contribute as a secondary factor towards fat loss progress, because I think that they do. I think the studies testing different macronutrient points at the same caloric range are enough sufficient evidence of this. I know anecdotally, I believe in myself, there are certain macronutrient points that are more effective for fat loss than others, regardless of my calorie intake. So I don't want to downplay the role of macronutrients, but the idea that they are more important than calories, or second to that, the idea that one of them needs to entirely be banned in order to facilitate fat loss, to me, this is absolutely nuts. So whether at one end of the spectrum, it's Eddie Abu, I think it is, that says, no carbs. No carbs, apart from, the carbohydrates in vegetables and some low sugar fruits, right? He's extreme at one end of the more carnivore, shall we call them, spectrum. Then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got some of the very high carb sort of plant-based figureheads in my community that might say things like, the fat you eat is the fat you wear, and actually if you want to lose body fat, the key is going to be keeping your fat intake very low. I think that's extreme at the other end of the spectrum, and so for me, this is partly why I chose meal of the day to be this one for this video, so you could see the balance here, guys. So we've got our healthy carb in terms of the macronutrients. We've got our healthy carbohydrate source in terms of the bulgur wheat here. We've got some protein, some plant protein, and a little bit of fat from the tofu. And of course, it's only a smattering here. It's a good old tablespoon and a half. But we've got our healthy fats from the hemp seeds, a wonderful source of healthy fats. And so I like to make sure that with most of my meals, I'm not perfect, some I'm slightly more imbalanced than others, but certainly over the course of the day, I'm satisfied that it works out just about. But with most of my meals, I like to make sure that I'm checking these boxes of, have I got a good fat source? Have I got a healthy carbohydrate source? Are we hitting some protein here? Wonderful. And then of course, beyond that, you can start considering micronutrients and it gets really complex. But this particular point is about not cutting out or demonizing needlessly a whole macronutrient group. Now, simultaneously, I say all of this, and I defend the importance of having balance with the macronutrients. This isn't to say there aren't moments where I might need to adjust one of them to keep my fat loss going because of how they contribute to my calorie intake. Does that make sense? Or how I'm feeling in a given moment? I've been doing this for 12 years. I've been into health and fitness. I've been doing a plant-based diet for 10 years. I'm not a genius on understanding my bodily signals, but at this stage I know relatively well, okay, this might be a period where I need a little bit more energy coming from carbohydrate. This might be a period where the healthy fats might need bumping up. Or, okay, yeah, a little bit more protein would do right now. Maybe I've been lacking in that slightly the last couple of days. Those are just examples. Like, I might intuit that one of these needs adjusting. Sometimes they need to go to keep the fat loss going. So what I actually often do inside Slim and Sustain, top tip here with some of my clients, is for some of their plateaus, the easiest thing to change, the easiest thing to reduce is the carbohydrate source a little bit. So I might be telling them to use X grams or X ounces, X cups less of potato in their dinner meal, or rice on this meal, or oats in their oatmeal, their banana and berry oatmeals in the morning, for example. So the carbohydrate is source, because it's so high naturally on a plant-based diet. It's actually quite an easy thing to attack and you can quite easily chip away at it while still actually eating a lot of carbohydrates. It's not like that suddenly turns it into a keto diet or a low-carb diet because the carbs are so abundant on a plant-based lifestyle. So yeah, sometimes the macronutrients do need to be reduced, perhaps to keep the fat loss going, one could argue. But at the same time, it's still about the calories. That's the main reason why. And the idea that you need to cut one out, even though they have their own unique benefits in the body, I think this is nuts. Rule number 3 to lose body fat in the right way, for me personally, this is a massive deal breaker. I will no longer tolerate any fat loss phase, any maintenance phase, any regular eating period where my fiber is not really, really high. And so after 10 years being one of these hippie plant-based vegan-y types, and eating, north of, even at the low end, even on a poor day of eating for me, it will be 35, 40 grams of fiber, but then right up to 60 odd. Doing that now for 10 years, wow, the fullness and the satisfaction I feel, it's absolutely immense, and there's no looking back. And so for me, no fat loss phase is acceptable unless my fiber is really, really high. And this is one of many reasons why I shall not, and I certainly do not intend to go back to eating large quantities of meat and dairy products, because the fiber is so lacking. And so when I eat foods that are very, very high in fiber, quite simply, I find it infinitely easier to maintain a calorie deficit. The obvious word of warning here is there are still some very high calorie but fiber rich foods. I'm thinking like nuts and seeds are a very, very good example of this, to whereby, yeah, they're high in fiber and by extension lots of other amazing nutrients as well. I don't need to sing about fiber disproportionately, but for the sake of, contributing towards fullness, and the point I'm making here, fiber is very crucial for this, I find. But yeah, nuts and seeds, very, very high, just tangent, sorry guys. But nuts and seeds, very high in fiber, but they're also extremely high in calories. So this isn't to say that you should eat fiber-rich foods at any cost and ignore the calorie consequence of eating those things, because the calories will just go up and up and up if you eat loads of nuts and seeds very effortlessly, as I'm sure you may have experienced. Like, you graze on some cashew nuts and you've eaten 200 calories like that, and like if that's 10% of your calorie target for the day, just on a small handful of cashew nuts, you think, that's not a great ROI, is it? That's not a good return on investment in terms of bang for buck there, in terms of food volume. So just be mindful of this. But fiber for me, deal breaker. To go low fiber, that will be an absolute deal breaker. This is a must for me for maintaining happily a calorie deficit, because I can feel more full for longer. Much easier to be in that deficit and therefore lose body fat. Rule number 4, again, I feel this isn't spoken about enough. This really deeply resonates with me personally. I notice that I have far more consistent and sustained fat loss attempts when I'm not biting off more than I can chew with exercise. And that boundary is a learned experience. It's through reference experience when I know that I'm going into a stage where I might be biting off more than I can chew with exercise. It's hard always to know that ahead of time. Sometimes it's hindsight, like, yeah, okay, that workout was tough, and now my appetite is cranking, it's absolutely flying. But that's a good example. Why? Like, for me, I notice the more high intensity exercise that I do, especially of a cardio form, but certainly those laborious leg day sessions, leg day strength sessions in the gym can do this as well. But my appetite spikes, guys. It goes absolutely wild. And not just an hour post-workout, but for the rest of the day. So if I work out in the morning, for example, I did a leg day yesterday morning and it was 35 to 40 minutes. It was actually a comparatively very quick leg session for me. I was in and out of the gym relatively smoothly. But it was about 10:30 a.m. I probably would estimate that I got out of the gym. Well, the rest of the day my appetite is flying. And that, when you're in a fat loss phase, is actually remarkably dangerous. It's remarkably risky. I felt like I was playing with fire all day yesterday, and I managed to curtail it. And I gave myself permission to eat a little bit more than I would on a rest day, certainly. But, it was touch and go in moments yesterday. I was like, I could go here. I could fly. I could go. Give me some bowl of rice and I could just hammer this. And suddenly, 400, 500 calories gone and you've blown it for the day, right? And so you have to be careful with this stuff. I personally, my appetite hyper responds to exercise. And so believe it or not, despite the conventional, if you want to lose fat, if you want to lose weight, just eat less and move more, right? Despite that conventional advice, which might be correct directionally for the vast majority of the general populace, but since my activity level is already high, relatively high as a baseline, doing more and more and more to burn more calories, if that was the objective, I like exercise too, but let's say it was to burn more calories so I could lose fat, well, that could actually have the adverse effect for me. That could be massively sabotaging because of how it cranks my appetite. Not to mention risk of injury goes up, burnout, maybe it's not particularly sustainable with my schedule. And so if I want to make a fat loss phase, especially the longer that it is, for me, this is going to be a short thing because we're talking about a couple of percentage points of body fat. But for you, if you're looking to go from 20 to 10%, 25 to 15%, if you're looking to lose 20 plus pounds, for example, even 15 plus pounds, you're going to be at this for a matter of at least weeks, if not multiple, at least weeks. It's going to be months, isn't it, realistically? It might be 3 to 4 months. It might be a year and a half. That might be the amount of time required for you to lose sensibly the body fat that you'd like to lose right now. Well, you do not want to be getting injured. You do not want to be burnt out. You do not want to be adhering to an exercise regimen that is not practical for your lifestyle for that length of time. So for me, this is why I need to always keep in mind, let's not bite off more than I can chew with exercise. Sometimes for me, it's much easier, or most of the time, I say sometimes, the vast majority of the time, I find it considerably easier to maintain a sensible calorie deficit and therefore consistently and gladly lose body fat when I'm actually doing less exercise on the spectrum of more or less exercise for me. So that's why I am just doing my 8,000 to 9,000 steps per day, which I do very naturally. I live in a moderately sized and medium-sized European city here, so there's lots of walking. It's very effortless, so it's part of my lifestyle. I don't even need to go for an intentional walk, really, which is great because it just naturally happens that I get those steps in. And then my 3 strength sessions per week. And after maybe 1 or 2 of those strength sessions, I'll gently pedal on the recumbent bike. That's what I'm enjoying at the moment. Sometimes the Stairmaster, but preferably not. Because again, if I sit on the Stairmaster for 20, 30 minutes and I burn 200 calories doing that, my appetite starts flying. So we're just, again, gentle. And this is exactly why, proof is in the pudding here. I would like to think I practice what I preach here. But then also by extension with my clients, right? This example of practicing what I preach, I suppose, inside Slim and Sustain, would you believe my clients, they only start, people don't believe this, with walking only for the first month of my program. The first month they're working with me, I only have them do walking. And some of them even come into the program and they're like, I'm ready to go, Ryan, I'm ready to up the ante. And occasionally I'll make an exception with that if we feel that it's in their best interest. But initially, or for the most part, I'm like, no, we're keeping it calm. We're finding a baseline calorie intake that your body responds very well to. And in time, we will gradually and progressively add more frequent and more intense exercise to your schedule, but we're going to feel it out. We're going to do it in baby steps. And there's an incremental way in which I do this with my Inside Slim and Sustain with my clients. And it's done incrementally and so gradually and so slowly, almost patronizingly slowly, to best mitigate against the risk of the appetite spikes and the injuries and all the things that actually have the adverse effect, even though you think, oh, this is really going to help fat loss, this is really going to help you get fit really fast. And it's like, not if it comes at the cost of your consistency and you're being able to actually stick to this. So that's why for me, what we're on, rule number 4 is not biting off, I've spent too long on this, so I'll wrap up, not biting off more than you can chew with exercise. And finally, rule number 5, to lose weight in the right way by seeing this as a long-term play. This marathon, not sprint mentality. We're not in a rush. This is how I think to myself about this stuff. We're not in a rush. We're not in a hurry. We actually want the results to stick. And so, no, I'm not trying to lose fat at any cost. Otherwise, I would be slamming Ozempic and eating 200 calories a day, ready to eat my arm every day. day, but I just get through it, right? Because I'll be lean in a week or two. No, thank you very much. I know exactly, as I said earlier, I know my boundaries. I know exactly where this goes. And this process can very much be a 1 step forward, 3 steps back. Never mind 2 steps forward, 1 step back. For me, it always goes the other way. My rebounds always take me to a worse starting point than when I started out at, when I do this really, really extreme stuff. And so this is why I love the idea of goals, but not deadlines. So I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, I need to get ripped, or I need to have abs before my vacation, or I need to be dress size X before my wedding or before this celebration in the summer. And I'm like, bad mentality. Even if it's realistic, maybe I'll make an exception. But the idea of attaching a deadline to this, when we don't know what will come, we don't know what obstacles you will face, we don't necessarily know exactly how your body will respond, I don't like it. And I also just don't like that, even if it's realistic, I don't like the mental framing of, oh, I've got this deadline. Because again, it can allow you to justify compromising on the values that can make you sustainable. That's it. I've just hit the nail on the head for me. That really resonates. I'm just realizing this myself. If I'm following something that is producing really good results, but it is threatening the values that I've just shared here that allow me to lose weight in what I feel is a healthy and sustainable way for me personally, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, or it's certainly not worth the squeeze for long. We know exactly where it goes. And so that's why I like goals and sort of North Stars. I'm always talking about North Star analogy. My clients, if they're watching this, will be laughing, because I'm always talking about, what's your North Star? What's your North Star? Because it's directional. It's not, you must be this weight by this date. Like, deadlines are really effective, but I think the risk with deadlines, and why I've stopped actually using them with my clients, is because they can get you to walk over the things that can actually allow you to be sustainable, consistent, the things that are realistic for you, because you're like, but I've got this deadline, so I need to get there. I've got the vacation's coming. I'm still not at 185. What am I going to do, Ryan? Maybe do I need to eat 1,000 calories now? Do I need to do a juice fast? Like, no. Stick to the protocol. If you're getting results, and just push the deadline back, that is far more sensible than adhering to some crazy deadline. So goals are good, deadlines suck. Goals are good, deadlines suck. I think you come from the wrong frame, and I think, again, you feed into this thinking that this is just a temporary diet. This is just, rather than lifestyle change, rather than, no, I love eating these sorts of delicious bowls. Like, for me, even, maybe this is an exaggeration, but I even want to be careful with my language. This is not a fat loss meal. This is a fueling meal. This is a meal that I really enjoy eating. And I'll eat it if I'm in a maintenance, a weight gain, a bulking, or a fat loss phase. I might adjust it, but principally, directionally, how this meal is put together, how it's situated, this is a fueling meal. It's not a fat loss meal. It's not a means to an end. It's not something that I hate eating and is really bad for me, but I'm just getting through it because, hey, fat loss phase, right? No, I feel immense after eating this. I feel really good. And that's the frame I come from. And if that means that my results are a little bit slower because I eat more bulgur wheat than somebody that thinks they need to do low carb to lose body fat will, fine, I don't really care. I don't really care, because I know what that adds to that sustainability piece. I know I can actually stick to this even longer. I can actually stay in the fat loss phase longer and even get leaner by eating more calories. Because I know in the long term, that is the kind of manipulation of my diet that keeps me on track, rather than feeding into all of the crash and burn stuff. So that's why, for me, I've digressed slightly, but rule number 5, tip number 5, to make losing weight feel, to lose weight in the right way, spit it out, Ryan, is not by seeing, oh my goodness, wrap up, Ryan, is by seeing this as a long-term play. We're taking our time, marathon, not sprint mentality. No shortcuts, no quick fixes. Let's do this in the right way so we actually have a chance at keeping the fat off once we've lost it. Right, that's it, folks. Hope you found this one useful. I'll keep you up to date with my little fat loss phase here and the insights and lessons that I learn along the way. In a couple more weeks, I'll report back some feedback and some learnings from that experience. Hopefully you can apply this stuff to your own strategy. But if you do need more help, this is exactly what I do for my clients inside Slim and Sustain. I design them a meal plan that puts them in a sustainable and sensible calorie deficit that they can actually stick to for more than a couple of weeks at the time. And because it's all programmed into their diet and into into their meals for them. They don't have to track their calories themselves or anything like that. There's no guesswork. There's no sort of hit and hope fat loss attempt here, because they know exactly, okay, Ryan has designed my diet to do X job, and so I can just trust in that. I can relieve myself of the stress and all the thinking, like, oh, what do I need to eat today to lose fat? It's done for me. So if you like the sound of that, and if you want massive accountability and support from me directly, remember, Slim and Sustain is I need to make more of a point of this. This is a highly personalized program where individualized care is prioritized. I don't do any cookie cutter nonsense in my program. I'm not one of those group coaching people that just farms you out to assistant coaches or does like a group Zoom once per week. So maybe once a week you get one of your questions asked if you put your hand up in time. None of that nonsense. This is hands-on, because I need to work with you one-on-one. It bugs me out, man. I need to work with you one-on-one to make sure you're getting results. So that's why I'm a bit of a control freak. So I'm like, no, I'm working with you directly. There's no outsourcing here. So if you want that massive one-on-one accountability, if you want to hire me as your personal coach to make sure that you're losing body fat in the right way and it's actually sustainable and you actually have the highest possible chance of keeping the weight off after you finish the program, unlike all the rebounding nonsense you may have experienced in the past, well, you can learn more about Slim and Sustain at the link down below. So click that link, go there, and you'll learn a little bit more about what it looks like to work together on Slim and Sustain. Okay, see you in the next one. Take care.